Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thank you so much for joining me. Did you ever take clear ornaments and swirl acrylic paints inside of them? Or maybe you even used alcohol inks. I've done that a lot. I did a lot when I was younger, and that was the inspiration for today's card. We're going to take the Festive ornament die set from Spellbinders. This came out last year, and we're going to use some of the little details that are there, in addition to that, the circle that comes with that die set for the ornaments. But I decided I didn't want to use just one size ornament, so I grabbed the Deco Impressions press plate and die set, and I'm going to take out the two smaller circles. The large circle is exactly the same size as the circle from the Festive Ornaments die set, so I didn't need to take that out. But I wanted to have 3 ornaments on there. We're going to use poster board paper. This is from Dollar Tree. It's Jot brand. You get a bunch of these. They're really inexpensive, and they work beautifully with alcohol inks. It's not the same as Yupo. It's different, but I happen to really like how this stuff works. I have a bunch of videos that show how I use this poster board paper with alcohol inks. There's a playlist that you can check out if you'd like. So I'm taking those 3 dies and I'm cutting a wide berth around them because I'm figuring that I'm going to wind up using some of that excess poster board paper for those extra little elements that are in that Festive Ornaments die set. So we're going to start with Rosewood alcohol ink, and excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, so if I'm clearing my throat and I sound a little froggy, that's why. I put down some blending solution onto the poster board paper first. That's typically the way I start working with alcohol inks, and now I'm just adding the rosewood. We're only doing 1 color per piece because you could see here they break out into such lovely ranges, lights and darks, and depending on how much you layer them. And what I'm doing is I'm going back and forth with my little blower tool here. I apologize that my dogs are barking. The mail is probably coming. And I go back and forth in different directions to push and pull that ink into different spots and get layers and breaks and things like that. I've got some ink on my glass mat here, so I'm just grabbing some isopropyl alcohol just to clean that up really quick because I really don't want to get any of the rosewood onto the greens. Now we're going to use moss. And again, I'm going in with the blending solution. I used way too much blending solution on this piece. I actually wound up sopping some of it up. This color it's beautiful, and I'm really glad that I used it. But it doesn't break out quite as dramatically as some other colors do. You can see here I'm trying to pick it up because I want to pick up some of that blending solution. There's just too much all over the place. The rosewood really gives you some pale colors and some deeps, and the moss doesn't do it quite as dramatically. I actually let this sit for a few seconds, again, because I put too much blending solution, so that it would start to dry and it wouldn't move so easily, and I could layer it a little bit better. I apologize that my arm keeps going right in front of the camera, but it's important to get those kind of different angles, and I kind of have to put my arm there sometimes to get those the blower tool to go where I want it to go. So now we're going to move on to Everglades. This is such a rich, beautiful green. I love this color. I don't use it too much, but it's just gorgeous. And again, it's the same thing, back and forth, up and down, side to side, just kind of getting those ripples and layers and things like that. Now you'll be able to see in a moment, I get like this kind of finger-like looking effect when I use the blower tool a little too strongly. I think I'll point it out shortly. There it is. It's right there. See that? I don't really want that. So I'm going to just add some blending solution and work that out so that it disappears. This blower tool was originally used for markers, like distress markers. Look at how cool that looks. You can't get this particular one anymore, but I will have a link to the new blower tool from Ranger. So because I use a lot of blending solution, my panels don't always dry super well. They kind of have a tack to them. They're a little sticky in some spots. So what I like to do is take Deco foil. This is a rose gold from Therm, and I burnish it on with my fingers, and wherever it's sticky, the Deco foil will stick. And it leaves such a beautiful effect. It'll be most obvious on that Everglades panel, but you'll see it here really nicely on the moss. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I love that. I love how that looks. And the rose gold makes it a little bit more festive and holiday, right? So you're just going to burnish it with your fingers. If you don't want to use your fingers, you can use a bone folder. I just find it to be easier to just use my fingers. And again, it removes the tack because now you're laying something on top of it. If you don't want to use Deco foil, or maybe you don't have any, you could always take an anti-static powder tool and use that. It might kind of soften the color a little bit because it's a powder, but it will get rid of the stick. So now I'm placing my 3 circle dies where I want them to be so that I can make my ornaments. And you can see that I'm really trying to push them to the side so that I have excess. I put a piece of paper on top of the alcohol ink panels when I ran it through my die cut machine because I don't want the alcohol ink, if there's any wet left to it, to get onto my cutting plates. And you could see that there actually was some alcohol ink on that piece of paper. So it's just, you can clean it with isopropyl alcohol, but I don't really want to be bothered. I just stick it on a piece of scrap paper, and then that can be thrown away or used on my gel plate or whatever. So now I've got the ornament toppers. That's from the Festive Ornaments die set, and I cut them out of a foiled gold cardstock. This is from Michael's. There are plenty of places that you can get beautiful metallic cardstock. Spellbinders has some. Erin Lee Creative has some gorgeous metallic cardstocks that you should check out. So I glued those all together, and now you can see that I'm using that excess to cut out some of the little extras that I want for my pieces. I've got the bow, I've got the holly, and then I have the berries. I was going to use the squiggle or the smallest ornament, but I loved how the Deco foil was placed on there, and I just didn't want to hide that marbleized look that we get and the Deco foil. So I opted to leave that one plain. So again, I used that paper on top to make sure that none of the ink got onto my cutting plate. And I'm just using a pokey tool to kind of remove all of my little dies here. This is the easiest way to do it. If, I also like to throw them onto my glass mat. That sometimes gets them knocked out, but I didn't want to lose any pieces. So I glued those all together. Look at how pretty that bow is. The bow is going to go right on top of that rosewood ornament. The holly looks great on the moss ornament. And again, the Everglades one I'm going to keep plain because it's festive enough. So now I left this part in because I want you to see that things don't always come together immediately. Creators don't necessarily just say, oh, I have the perfect idea. I'm going to just bing, bang, boom, stick this here and it's done. It takes time. So if you find that you're taking a lot of time to figure out placement or whatever design features, it's okay. We all take a lot of time. So here I am fiddling with this around and trying to decide, is this really where I want it? Am I happy with this? This is just my card base. We're going to add more to it. Don't worry. So just know that this is sped up quite a bit. And it took me a while to kind of figure out where I wanted things to go. So now I'm just gluing those little extras onto my ornaments because I've figured out my placement. I've got my block there to hold them down. This is the Handmade Holidays paper pad. You can get this from Spellbinders still. It was in the Handmade Holidays card kit, but that has sold out. But the paper pad itself is still available. I grabbed this first piece of paper and I thought it was going to work out because the colors match. It looks cool. But you lose that rosewood ornament on there. And I just didn't care for it. It was too much. So I went back and there was a plaid that I had seen that I thought would also work. Originally, my thought was that I was going to go with a craft cardstock, but it just felt a little flat to me. It wasn't quite what I wanted. So I came across this plaid in the Handmade Holidays paper pad, and I thought that was really sweet. I thought it was pretty. I bet you've got some plaid paper in your stash or some other type of pattern paper that you can use. And if not, you can go with plain cardstock. You don't have to use anything. You can use an embossing folder. You can use stencils. Lots and lots of options. I wanted some type of pattern paper because I have so much pattern paper. I really just wanted to use another piece of it up because I've got a lot of it. And it's cool. I thought that the plaid looked really pretty though. All right, so we've got these ornaments here, but they're not hanging on anything, right? They're just kind of floating there. So I've got this gold thread. This is like embroidery floss kind of thing. I don't know. I borrowed it from my mom. And I'm going to just string through this thread. This part is going to be tedious, you guys. I'm just telling you now. Again, I left it all in because I wanted you to see that, these things take time. A lot of creators will edit down their videos quite a bit to make sure that, you make the most out of your time while watching their videos, and that's awesome. But I don't want you to think that these things happen in 30 seconds or less, okay? So I've cut this thread down, excuse me, and now I'm going to start figuring out exactly how I want it. I didn't want that thread to go across that rosewood ornament. It took away from it way too much. So I wasn't a fan. So I threaded it underneath, and now I'm going to figure out the best way to attach them. But first I've got my sentiment. This is from the Home for Christmas Sentiments from Spellbinders. This is a better press plate and die set. It's fantastic. I really like it. I've been using it quite a bit. I had made it on white cardstock with a green. It's some VersaFine Claire ink. Could be spruce. Could be something else. I don't recall exactly because I made a whole bunch of them all at once. So now what I'm doing is I am going to adhere that small ornament to the paper. You'll notice that I didn't put any of the adhesive on the ornament hook itself. Because of the thread, I don't want to stick that down. I just want to have it kind of hanging there. The ornament is holding the piece well enough. I don't need to have glue up there. So now I'm getting some Scotch tape, just Scotch tape, you guys, nothing fancy here. And I'm just taping that down. Don't make this tight. If you do, your paper, because this is paper, not cardstock, is going to kind of bow forwards, and it's not going to lay flat when you try adhering it to your card base. So make sure you don't pull it super tight. So now I'm just making sure that I like the placement, and I think I'm going to stick down the sentiment, the happy holidays now. Yeah. Just so that I know that that's exactly where I want it. It's such a pretty sentiment. I love when there's script with like a print. I think that it's really interesting. Okay, so now we've got the next ornament, and I'm fumbling a little bit. That's okay. Again, I've got a bit of a cold. It's a little harder to create when you're not, 100%. So I'm sticking that down, no glue on the ornament hook again, and I'm going to swing this to the back and carefully tape down with Scotch tape that bit of thread that's left. It just finishes it off. I don't want those ornaments to be floating in midair. You don't have to do any fancy knots or anything. It's just kind of strung through, and that's the end of that. You can cut off any excess that you have. I have a lot for this one. I don't know what I was thinking there. I should have scooched those threads a little closer together. I wind up doing that later because I don't like that separation, but I do wind up fixing it a bit. See how that's separated there? I don't realize it yet, but I will. So now I've got some Artis glue. I was using Barely Arts before. The only reason I switched over is because the nozzle on this glue is wider, and it applies quicker. Use whatever you've got, you guys. So now I'm going to place it on my card base, which you will notice that I left white this time. See here, I'm fixing that thread. I left it white. It worked well with the sentiment. And I just didn't think it needed any more color for once. Crazy, right? But that's the card, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I think that it came out so, so pretty, and it's super nostalgic. It brings me back to those days when I used to swirl acrylic paint into clear glass ornaments. So that's it for me today. I hope you learned something. I will see you all very, very soon. Be well, stay safe. Peace out.